A hot summer afternoon at Denver International Airport should have been routine for American Airlines Flight 3023, a Boeing 737 MAX 8 bound for Miami with families, tourists, and business travelers on board. Instead, it turned into a scene pulled straight from a disaster film. As the aircraft roared down runway 34L, a loud bang cracked through the cabin. In seconds, thick smoke billowed from the left-hand landing gear, and the jet screeched to a halt. Flight attendants shouted commands. The emergency slides deployed, and 173 passengers and 6 crew members were suddenly tumbling onto the tarmac. Videos shot by those fleeing and later shared around the world show a chaotic cascade of humanity. People clutching children in one arm and oversized carry-ons in the other, sliding down the inflatable chutes while orange flames licked the underside of the fuselage and sirens wailed in the background. It was a terrifying reminder of how quickly an ordinary takeoff can turn into a life-or-death scramble. So what exactly happened beneath that 737 MAX to force such a dramatic evacuation? Was it a freak mechanical failure, human error, or something deeper rooted in the aircraft's troubled lineage? Could it have been far worse had the jet become airborne only seconds later? In the chapters ahead, we will unpack the timeline of the incident, sift through eyewitness accounts and official statements, and explore the technical nuances of landing gear, brake systems, and emergency procedures. To begin, though, we should first step back and set the stage by understanding the aircraft involved and the broader context of this runway drama. Before we dive into the minute-by-minute narrative of the Denver evacuation, it helps to understand the airplane and the wider aviation backdrop. American Airlines Flight 3023 was operated by a 3-year-old Boeing 737 MAX 8, delivered in late 2021. On July 26th, it was scheduled to carry 173 passengers and 6 crew members from Denver International Airport to Miami. The 737 MAX is the latest generation of Boeing's workhorse single-aisle jet, and while it has become a common sight at airports worldwide, its name still evokes memories of the MCAS-related crashes in Indonesia and Ethiopia that led to a worldwide grounding in 2019. Aviation regulators later cleared the MAX to return to service after extensive software and training changes, and it has since logged millions of safe flight hours. Importantly, the Denver incident did not involve the MAX flight control system. Instead, investigators quickly focused on the landing gear and brakes. Takeoff is an intense phase of flight. Pilots accelerate down the runway until the aircraft reaches a decision speed, typically between 120 and 150 knots for a fully loaded 737, at which point they either continue the takeoff or abort if a problem arises. Simple Flying and the Aviation Herald report that Flight 3023 was traveling about 127 knots, roughly 146 miles per hour, when its trouble began. An aborted or rejected takeoff occurs when the crew decides to stop the aircraft before liftoff due to a malfunction or warning. The landing gear is the retractable wheel assembly that supports the aircraft during taxi, takeoff, and landing, while a brake fire refers to overheating and combustion in the brake assemblies, often caused by extreme friction. With these fundamentals in mind, we can better appreciate the crew's split-second decisions during the Denver emergency. Now let's reconstruct how those decisive moments unfolded on the runway. On the afternoon of July 26th, Flight 3023's departure from Denver was anything but straightforward. Gusty crosswinds led the crew to request multiple runway changes. After taxiing to runway 08, then 17L, then 35R, they finally lined up on runway 34L for takeoff. Passengers reported a sense of relief as the engines powered up and the 737 MAX began its acceleration. But just seconds into the takeoff roll, somewhere around 125 to 127 knots, everything changed. A sudden, deafening bang ripped through the cabin, followed by violent shaking that threw travelers forward in their seats. One eyewitness later told CBS Miami that he saw one of the wheels pass by the window as the aircraft decelerated. The pilots reacted instantly, pulling the thrust levers to idle and standing on the brakes. The left-hand main landing gear strut failed, collapsing under the aircraft and causing the jet to skid on its nose gear. Right main gear, and even the left engine nacelle. From the control tower came a chilling radio call. "You are on fire." Flames and black smoke were clearly visible near the left wing root as the airplane ground to a stop. Without hesitation, the crew shut down the engines, armed the emergency exits, and ordered an evacuation. Inflatable slides unfurled from the forward and aft doors, and passengers scrambled to escape. Smartphone videos show people sliding down while clutching backpacks or pulling wheeled suitcases behind them, despite standard instructions to leave everything behind. Some passengers panicked, tripping and tumbling at the end of the slide while others held hands and tried to keep their families together. Outside, Denver firefighters rushed in and quickly doused the small break fire. In the end, all 173 passengers and 6 crew members were off the aircraft within minutes. 5 were treated at the scene, and 1 was transported to a hospital with minor injuries. The shock and confusion lingered on the tarmac, but thanks to swift action, there were no fatalities. With the timeline established, the next logical question is, what mechanical failure or combination of factors triggered this dramatic chain of events? When investigators arrived on the Denver runway, they found a mangled mess of metal, rubber, and carbon dust. American Airlines quickly stated that Flight 3023 had suffered a mechanical issue with one of its main landing gear tires. According to airline representatives quoted by Simple Flying, the combination of a blown tire and the violent deceleration that followed produced a minor isolated break fire beneath the left wing. That explains the flames, but not necessarily the full chain of failure. The Aviation Herald sheds more light. As the aircraft accelerated through roughly 125 knots, the left-hand main gear strut collapsed. With the strut gone, both tires on that side shredded almost instantly, leaving the wheel rims and brake assemblies to grind against the runway. At high speeds, carbon brakes already generate tremendous heat. They are designed to absorb kinetic energy on landing, not to be dragged along bare concrete. When a wheel collapses or a tire punctures, the friction can create sparks and ignite hydraulic fluids or rubber vapors. That appears to be what happened here. One intriguing detail is that the Boeing 737 MAX lacks an onboard tire pressure monitoring system. If a tire was underinflated or damaged during taxiing, the crew would have had no way of knowing before accelerating, as one Aviation Herald commenter noted. Such a failure could have overloaded the remaining tire and hastened the collapse. The Federal Aviation Administration has launched an investigation, and it will take months of metallurgical analysis, maintenance record scrutiny, and flight data evaluation to pinpoint the root cause. For now, all we can say with confidence is that a structural failure in the left main gear and subsequent tire destruction triggered a small fire, one that was contained thanks to quick pilot action and airport firefighters. Understanding the mechanics is only half of the story. The human element during the evacuation is just as critical, as we'll explore next. Aviation safety regulations are clear. When an onboard fire is detected, pilots and cabin crew must get everyone off the aircraft as quickly and safely as possible. In a rejected takeoff scenario like Flight 3023's, the pilots immediately shut down the engines to eliminate jet blast and the risk of ingesting debris. They then armed the emergency slides and gave the order to evacuate. Flight attendants are trained to shout concise commands, jump and slide, while ensuring that passengers leave belongings behind. Carry-ons can catch on door frames, puncture slides, or slow down those behind you. Despite these procedures, footage from Denver shows several people descending the slides while gripping backpacks, duffel bags, and even wheeled suitcases, a behavior Simple Flying and other experts criticized. In a true fire scenario, seconds count. Even a brief delay to retrieve a bag can hinder those farther back and increase the chance of injury or smoke inhalation. Thankfully, the crew of Flight 3023 stayed calm and assertive. They herded passengers toward the exits, assisted those who stumbled, and kept traffic moving. Denver firefighters arrived almost immediately and doused the minor break fire, preventing it from spreading. Ultimately, only 5 people required medical evaluation on the tarmac, and 1 was taken to hospital with minor injuries. American Airlines quickly arranged for a replacement aircraft, and nearly all passengers continued to Miami later that day. The incident serves as a textbook example of how training and teamwork can avert tragedy, and it raises important questions about how airlines, regulators, and manufacturers respond to such scares. Those broader implications for safety culture and industry reputation are what we'll examine next. Though no lives were lost, the incident aboard American Airlines Flight 3023 carries serious implications for the airline industry. For American Airlines, it was a stark reminder of how even a localized mechanical issue, like a tire failure, can escalate into a full-scale evacuation. The event may prompt the airline to reassess its maintenance protocols, particularly around tire inspections and replacement intervals. More broadly, it shines a spotlight on the continued absence of tire pressure monitoring systems, TPMS, on many commercial jets, including the Boeing 737 MAX. A TPMS could have alerted the crew to underinflation or pressure anomalies before the takeoff roll, potentially preventing the sequence of failures that followed. For Boeing, any emergency involving a 737 MAX reverberates far beyond the runway. Even though this incident appears unrelated to the MAX's previously flawed MCOS software, the aircraft's legacy of public mistrust means that every issue, no matter how mechanical, invites renewed scrutiny. Airlines and passengers alike may grow more cautious, and Boeing may face questions about whether the design of the landing gear or brake assemblies contributed to the failure. Regulators like the FAA will likely examine whether design changes, such as reinforced gear components or sensor upgrades, could reduce the risk of future strut collapses. The incident also caused ripple effects on the ground. Denver International Airport experienced nearly 90 flight delays that afternoon, showing how a single runway blockage can disrupt national airspace operations. More significantly, this evacuation is just one in a series of recent aviation incidents. Collectively, they raise uncomfortable questions. Are maintenance and inspection standards keeping pace with growing demand? Are airlines pushing aircraft too hard under tight schedules? These are the kinds of systemic issues that demand attention, not just from investigators, but from the entire aviation community. What began as a routine flight to Miami turned into a high-stakes emergency in a matter of seconds. A collapsed landing gear and blown tire at takeoff speed triggered a brake fire on American Airlines Flight 3023, but thanks to swift decisions by the flight crew and the professionalism of the cabin staff, all passengers escaped with only minor injuries. This incident is a powerful testament to why emergency protocols and rigorous training matter. It also leaves us with questions. What exactly caused the gear to fail? Could it have been prevented? And what lessons will regulators and manufacturers take from this event? We'll be watching closely as the FAA investigation unfolds, and we'll bring you those findings when they're available. Have you ever experienced an in-flight emergency or evacuation? What would you have done in this scenario? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more aviation breakdowns and updates from the world of flight safety. Above all, remember, if you ever have to evacuate an aircraft, leave your bags behind.